There is a fifth dimension.
About the unknown.
Beyond that which is known to man.
The Garden of Thought.
The Babylon Project was our last best hope for peace.
Unexplained.
Mythologies.
This is the dimension of imagination. It is an area which we call
The Garden of Thought with Jeff Lippman.
Welcome everyone into Garden of Thought, and this week, or this episode, we're welcoming in a new guest, and we're going to talk about certain mythologies. Particular, I asked the guest to talk about some African pantheons from around the African continent. I don't know, what the chronology is going to be, if they're even going to be parallels from the same times or not. Probably not. Africa is huge. And so I'm very thankful to this guest for tackling such a thing. And he is Damien Marie Athope, independent researcher, psychology degree, cybermet through mutual friends, Professor John Hupps, who's been on the show several times. Damien has their own YouTube channel, lots of good content there, colorful artwork as well. Covers the entire world, has been at this a lot longer than I have, but we were talking pre-production and certainly agree on a lot. But, anyway, without any further ado, welcome. Thanks for being here, Damien.
Hi, thank you. Nice to be here.
Yeah.
And, I'm Damien Marie Athope, and for me, as an independent researcher, I actually didn't have a desire to seek out at first learning about religions or anything. I was a Christian believer, and I went to college to be in a sense, Christian pastor or whatever, counselor, Christian counselor. And then took 2 classes on religion that were mandatory that I hated, did not want to take. I didn't want to hear anything about other religions. I knew they're all wrong. Never read anything about other religions. Totally was ignorant, as ignorant can be. In fact, I didn't even know that many branches of Christian faith. But I just knew that my particular little branch was correct, totally correct. Everything else was false. So I'm just giving you the background. So I started with complete ignorance and no desire to learn either. And then I took the first class was on world religions. We had to learn a different religion, I think it was 10 of them, every week, but not say anything wrong with them, just explain what they believe. But doing that, oh man, that really started making me think, wow, a lot of these are the same or have similar stuff. They all have their own book. They all know the way of the afterlife, and only their story of the afterlife is correct. Only their teachers are correct. Only their, morality is in a sense the correct, path to do and how to live. And I started realizing, wow, how do I know mine is true? So I wasn't disbelieving. I just started having an uncomfortable thought. If I know all these are wrong and these don't sound that different than what I'm doing, how do I really know anything about mine's correct? I became an atheist, though, halfway through the class on the Bible. We did a class on the Bible where the entire, term, whatever, was just the Bible. And it was all kinds of archeology and understanding how myths related to other myths. It blew my mind. I had never, investigated where places were at and chronologies of things or how it could relate to other stories. And I just, when it got to the devil and they said, it's the serpent, Lucifer, Satan, the devil, none of these are the same being. I just stopped believing. I just, full atheist. It was and then I thought, what am I going to do now? Because I had decided to go to school to be this Christian counselor.
Right.
And I'm not a Christian no more. So then I thought, I'll go into social work at first. So because I started having not knowing what I need to do now. I mean, you go into a whole goal and all of a sudden that goal is gone. You're like, uh-oh. And so I started doing that, but I wanted to research. I had some of the reason, like I said, the Bible was the devil, but also, like I said, where Mesopotamia was and how the stories of the flood, were in the Epic of Gilgamesh and the place of Eridu's Genesis and Eridu is one of the first Sumerian, in a sense, city-states or cities, whatever. And so I started wanting to learn archaeology because I felt like, okay, because I didn't really trust anybody. At that time, I didn't even know other people were even atheists.
Right.
I didn't learn. So, because some people read books or watch things and get influenced. I wasn't influenced. I just, from looking at the stuff myself, stopped believing and then wanted to be informed because I realized, wow, what else don't I know?
Right, my whole life is a lie. So now I've got to...
Right, my whole life is a lie. I don't know what to do with my life, so I might as well research.
Right.
And so...
Physician, heal thyself.
Right. So the truth will set you free, and verse will piss you off. So I just wanted to learn. I didn't have any set belief. Wasn't sure that maybe there's an afterlife or something, or ghosts, or I wasn't sure. I just knew that the stories about God and all this is nonsense. Devils, everything, this is just nonsense. So I started to not understand. I still hadn't talked to anyone that was phenomenal.
I'm still not sure about ghosts.
Well, I wanted to test, so I paid to go in Savannah to a supposed haunted house. And I said all kinds of bad things. They said, don't say in the dark. I did everything they said me not to do. Nothing happened. So I left there going, okay, go, sir. It didn't make sense to me. It was because I started to understand evolution. And I was like, okay, if we're all evolution, when did magical spirit enter evolution? And how come not animals? And how come maybe not did Neanderthals, Desovians win? How about, Homo erectus? Did they have souls? I just started thinking, it's like this magic thinking doesn't fit with my reality understanding of the world. And so, like I said, I started wanting to research more. Then I went on to Facebook and I met atheists, and they sound really arrogant and cocky, but also don't seem to know that much more than I do about world religions. But they'll tell you they're all wrong and they're all myths. And I'll say, okay, can you tell me about any of these world religions? And they're like, well, I kind of know about Christianity. I'm like, so did I. That doesn't convince me other religions are totally false just because you feel that. So I felt like that wasn't a better argument than some of the ways I had believed prior to me losing my faith in a sense. I wanted to know. I wanted to know on a level that I felt more confident. So that's why I realized I don't want to follow. I don't do things I'm actually probably a more extreme atheist, anti-theist, anti-religionist than most people that say they don't have faith. I approach it in a more academic almost way, but just detached from my personal emotions. I want to know what the truth is. Then I'll decide what I think about it, in a sense. And so I just started to look all over the world. I started 1 million years ago. I'm even a little older. But I wanted to know, how did humans happen? How did we move around? When did we start doing symbolic behaviors? I wanted to know all of it. So anyways, I felt like, and I figured out I felt that it was animism, totemism, shamanism, paganism as the order of the religion happened. And I was pretty sure. So the more I looked, all that seemed correct. And I thought, but I didn't understand the gods yet, really. So I wanted to understand gods. And at first, looking at stuff, I see stuff that go back to Tebby and that, but they kind of look like totem poles. And totem poles generally don't always relate to a god.
Right.
So I thought, well, maybe those aren't gods at first, right? And it seems like the first time there could be something is maybe females as a different kind of a totem pole or something at female figurines. So I thought, well, maybe 10,000 years ago, female gods happened. And then for sure, I was sure that by the Balkans, by 7,000, 7,500, male figurines show up in a really strong way. And I felt, well, maybe that's the male gods. They didn't happen at the same time. And it wasn't actually until I started researching after, as you talked about, that I finally found out more of how to think about it. Because once I understood that Africa has supreme deities throughout the entire continent in a way that couldn't have happened the way I thought the gods had happened. So it made me try to figure out the gods because of grasping in a stronger way Africa. So I'll go ahead and just to get you up to Africa. So anyways, explaining African gods. And I'm basically going to focus mainly on the supreme god, but you'll understand once I start reading.
Okay, well that sounds really good. Obviously, I think any longtime listener of this show knows that we could have gone into a million different directions and talked about a lot of different things. But I really want to take advantage of the fact that you had knowledge of the African pantheons, because that is hard to find. It's hard to find someone who knows it. Period. Or it's been hard for me, but but when you do find someone who does, I mean, they're probably a professor at a university, or they're an author, or they're, in another part of the world, and they're not necessarily going to respond to my DM on X or my email, or they're too busy, or they will respond. And so anyway, I was thrilled, and so lead on. I mean, full revelation to the audience. Damien said to me, I don't know, about an hour or so before recording, he's like, I made an outline. I made something and I'm going to use that as a reference. I'll send it to you, and then so you can see where we're going. I'm like, I don't want to. I prefer that to be organic. I want to be surprised. I want it to be fun. So I don't even know where or when in Africa you're going to start. The only thing I said earlier is to avoid it. Don't really need to go into Egypt. We sort of have Egypt, or at least like the last 6, to 8,000 years. We've covered that one. I realized after sort of doing an index of people I've talked to and whatnot through some of the voodoo shows and some of the other shows that we've touched on some Western Africa, but not enough that where it's ever been like supreme God, God of fertility, God of, So anyway, I'm going to shut up. I'm going to let you start where you want to start.
All right. Well, I'll just go into two things that you said that I can address. One is I'm not going to address anything about Egypt, so we can go there because I agree with you. I could talk about stuff that probably people don't generally know about Egypt. Even some people that are academics like how I approach it, but I don't. This is nothing to do with that. I want to address all the rest of Africa.
Yeah.
And,
me too.
Although I do feel that people need to understand talking about when deities happen. So to me, I think that it's possible deities could have came in at 10,000 years ago with J1 DNA that goes to the Sahara. But J1 DNA didn't have a large impact, wasn't a lot of people, pretty small. What was bigger was the next one. 9,000 years ago, tDNA comes in. tDNA definitely probably would have been associated with maybe cattle, but certainly goats, sheep, those type of animals. They were definitely pastoralists. And that to me, they brought, I think it's possible, that's when you get the first supreme deity. So to me, deities and in the Middle East, especially Turkey, probably happened 12 to 11,000 years ago. Maybe the far most 13,000 to me. But by 10,000, I think that's when there's a supreme deity.
So
by that time,
let me see if I can. I think I understand what you're saying, but I don't want, especially if it's a new listener or somebody who hasn't listened a lot, or let's the host and the guest take them to the show. I am assuming that when you talk about the DNA, that it is some mutation or change to our DNA, and not that we had goat or sheep or cattle DNA in us, but something about that, probably like we developed immunities to, say, smallpox and I'm talking
about haplogroups is what I'm talking about. Haplogroups are like different branches. Like, say, people from the Hazai tribe, which is like 10 to 12,000 years ago at least, maybe 15. And the San people, they're in the Khoi people. They have like A and B, right? Mm-hmm. B is probably, I think it's like 90,000 to 120,000 years old. Well, T, so what happened is cDNA leaves in a sense, and it branches into F. F goes into T and L and H, and anyways, several different, in a sense, lineages of humans. In a sense, because C goes down to I think by 60,000 years ago, male DNA. I'm talking about haplogroups went down to Australia, and then but anyways. My point is, so like say people think of it as Western Europe and stuff, and Eastern Europe. Eastern Europe, especially the North part, is more male R1A DNA, and the more Western and Southern is usually R1B.
So you can trace the DNA to times and types almost the same way Ancestry and Me or 23andMe or whatever. It can tell you where you're from, because there are certain traits associated with time, place, from whatever the environmental.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So,
this helps also to understand migrations, like who did what, when, where, and then possibly how. And then I can trace how those things also interacted with culture, with archaeology, and with languages. And then you can track language spread sometimes past that, because sometimes you'll have more than one, say, male DNA go to an area, but then language will spread those ideas farther than. So, yeah.
Sure, Cain had to go to Nod, right?
Right, but I just wanted to understand that I when I'm talking about these migrations, it's not like guessing that when the people went in. I am speculating on what they brought as ideas with them.
Right.
I know they went in. I know when they went in. I know where they went in. I know the ideas of what they were doing, sort of, and how they were interacting with people. In archaeology, what we don't know, of course, what I'm speculating, is how that relates to the religion. So I'm just saying. So I feel like the first possible of the supreme deity, which the supreme deity later becomes like monotheism, but at this time it's like early paganism. It's not really monotheism. So when it first comes in, and then it comes another DNA from the same area, from Israel and from the Middle East, comes R1B B88. Specific one goes down to Super Lake Chad or whatever. And I think it also brought the supreme deity. It also was this pastoralist type of thing, which by 5,000 starts spreading all over Africa, which is one reason why then they spread their religion at the same time. And the Bantu expansion starts a little after 5 and gets all the way down to the Zulu in South Africa, coming all the way from Cameroon, which Niger-Congo languages. Niger-Congo A is kind of southern western Africa, that thing that sticks out. And then Niger-Congo B is all the Bantu, which is like central and southern Africa. Anyways, but when I check, because I've been doing research on it, so they have the most supreme deities of all the other things. It's like everywhere they went, deity, and they're almost all kind of the same. You'll hear when I start reading some stuff. But anyways, that's just to give you the background of where I think it comes from and how old it is. So the first one's at 9. The second one's like at 8 to 7. I think that there's really more stuff came in at 6, but that more affects mainly Egypt, not so much the rest of Africa in the same way. So to me, that's why I realized how old these deities probably are, because of when the influence would have occurred. Anyways, so explaining African gods. So in the realm of the supernatural, African traditional religion, which I would call, in a sense, basically early paganism to most of it, holds that the supreme being, or the owner of the heaven and earth, deities relate with the god and are seen to be God's messengers and intermediaries. This is real important because this is like a universal almost theme. The deity is generally aloof in a way, the main creator deity, almost like how the people in the Americas will say the Great Spirit, they just say the creator, and they don't really worship the creator.
Right.
So African traditional religions generally have a supreme god being that ranges from sounding like a mismatch of pantheism, polytheism, henotheism, and monotheism.
What was the third word that you used? What was the...
Pantheism, that's where like nature itself almost is a
Right.
god, which is kind of like chi, sort of, like in China, how chi is like this energy force that's like everything's created from.
Like, is that animism?
Yeah, henotheism, where basically one god is seen as the god you worship, but it doesn't deny the ability of there being other deities.
Okay. So there shall be no other gods before me, but there are other
Right.
gods. Okay.
Exactly. Yes. Right. And in a sense, it came. It can be seen. It can seem at first that African religions and their deities are confusing, strange, compared to known world religions to some.
They're pretty strange too. I mean, they're all strange. That's the thing. But
right. Well, I was going to address that. So, but actually, to me, it's only because of a misunderstanding of world religions in general.
Right.
Not that Africa is actually any different. To me, actually, when you understand religions more, Africa is not really different.
Right.
I mean, it's just different names, but everywhere has different names. So so I agree with you. It's all strange from reality, but it also is not really strange once you understand. Even like monotheism, a lot of people think, well, monotheism. I could say all monotheistic deities are a male god. There's not any female monotheism in the world. But if you look deeper at monotheism, most monotheists actually, the original texts and stuff, don't say it's even a male. Often it will say it's genderless, which I think is funny since everybody calls it a he and says it's the Father God and all this. Anyways, I'm just saying, so religion in general is kind of contradictory and fun.
Mm-hmm. You're right. I mean, yes. Yeah, I don't want to repeat things that I repeated a million times before, but yes, absolutely. Yeah, let's get into it now. Let's get to our
supreme being or God, because sometimes it could be like a great spirit. The supreme being or God in African traditional religions, who generally featured as a supreme God, is omnipotent, omnipresent, and eternal creator of the universe. They almost all say this, something close to it, which I say looks kind of like what's favored in monotheism. To have their deity do all that.
Sure.
But yet it's not really monotheism. The supreme being God in traditional African religion is recognized as the ultimate source of life. The God is often considered transcendent and distant, meaning it isn't actually active, is what they call an active high God. High gods are just a God in a sense of a sky or a supreme power. And then an active high God is one that cares about you or does stuff with you. A lot of the African ones, it's a high God, but yet it doesn't interact.
Right.
Which actually, they did a study on 39 different hunter-gatherer groups across, in a sense, the world. And 39% had a high God, but only, I think it was 15%, something like that, actually had an active high God, meaning that, in other words, a high God that's active cares about you, you pray to it, or wants you to worship it, or could even be moralistic in the sense of caring about how you have sex with or whatever. A non-active high God doesn't really care. It's not involved. Created life, moved on.
Right. Well, listen, nobody worshipped Uranus. Zeus, however, grandson demanded quite a bit. Right. But also knew very well that places like Athens, sort of Athena was, first in their mind. So this is not unusual at all. It's just we're as we go backwards, it's like we're looking at something in the wrong direction. So of course it all feels new and different, but it's not new and different. So that's great. So all right. So
like I said, most of the time the supreme God in African religions is not really involved in daily affairs. Leaves that often to, in a sense, lesser deities, spirits, or ancestors. And they don't, by the way, people call it ancestor worship. This is the wrong way to say it. It's more like ancestor assistance to them, because you're not worshiping them like they're a deity. Although there are some places in the world that is the case, even Asia or whatever. But this is not generally what it means in the African context. It means like they're like an intermediary for the deity or for a spirit or for nature itself. They can do, because they're in the spirit world. You can talk to them, and then they can, try to help, things get better for you.
Well, every religion has that too, whether they're called angels or luminaries or aeons.
Right, and then, like I said, just like that seen in Hinduism with the supreme god Krishna, and the Chinese supreme god Shangdi or Tan, similar to aspects of the Bible's supreme god Yahweh, El, or Elohim, with the supernatural, such as the Native American concept of the Great Spirit. The concept of a supreme Great Spirit or High God seeming with lesser divine beings is a reoccurring theme in various religious and mythological beliefs or frameworks. So it's not, like you said, this is not actually strange in any kind of way. And I'm going to give you a couple examples. I'm going to tell you Hinduism, the Bible, traditional Chinese religion, traditional Native American religion, and then traditional African, so you can grasp what I'm saying. So Hinduism, religion, spiritual philosophy. Specifically in the Bhagavad Gita, the supreme god Krishna explains and reveals himself as a supreme personality or Godhead. Personality means like the avatar, or like the thing that creates avatars in a sense. And avatars are like representations on earth of the deity, of a deity. And there's a bunch of different ones. But as Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, actually all of that is just him. Think of it this way. It's like if there's a prism, right? It takes the light of the sun that's yellow, and then it turns it into all these different colors. Or a rainbow does the same sort of thing. That's, in a sense, what African religions kind of like, and Hinduism is also saying it is also like. So Krishna is considered the ultimate source of all existence and the singular, all-encompassing reality. And Krishna declares himself as the origin of all spiritual and material worlds, with everything, including other divine forms. Krishna is the cause of all causes, and is the seed giver, father of all living beings. Everything that exists is a manifestation of his material energy, which is kind of like the chi. And also, like I said, in African religions, it's similar. Krishna reveals his cosmic form, demonstrating that he is the beginning and end of all existence, the encompassing of everything of the universe. This is a similar way to look at African religions. The supreme being. Krishna states that he is the origin of all gods, devas, including the Brahma and Shiva, making them subservient to his power. Or like I said, like a prism, they're just an aspect or a representation of him on earth, or in some time or being or thing that's going on. Krishna explains that those who worship other avatar gods with faith are actually just worshiping him, but in an improper and indirect way, because they are perceived through the duality. It is Krishna that is the source of all gods and avatars, the material existence and incarnation of deities on earth, which include Vishnu. So, yeah. Thus, all other deities are just avatars, expressions, or emanations from Krishna. So the Bible, religion, spiritual philosophy, Yahweh is seen as the supreme God, or heavenly host of, or council of the council of blessed gods, which is seen in Psalms 82, which describes God in a sense presiding over a divine council and judging among the gods. It says God presides in the great assembly. He renders judgment among the gods. So it's a similar type of a thing. And yet they say they only have one God. Well, in a sense, like Krishna is saying the same thing. Yeah, there's other God, and it's still just me.
Right.
So traditional Chinese religion and monist texts suggest that lesser gods and ancestral spirits exist to carry out the will of Shangdi, which is the supreme heaven or God. Shangdi is the name of Chinese highest deity, which almost, like I said, can sound almost like monotheism also, but it isn't. But is also implicated in the meaning of the primordial deity and the first deity or the Lord above, especially from Shang theology, finding its equivalent in the later beliefs of Tan, which is heaven or great whole, in Taoist theology. Although the use of Tan refers to the absolute God of the universe, is predominant in Chinese philosophy today and religion. Shangdi, though, continues to be used in various traditions. Shang, in script, was seen as the great supreme God of the celestial pole, which can be understood as the axis mundi representing the center of the world, thus connecting heaven, earth, and the underworld. So in other words, I am everything and I am part of the world, in a sense, or what's the structure of the world, how it's structured. Shangdi seems to have, in a sense, ruled a hierarchy of other gods, controlling nature as well as the spirits of the deceased. So once again, all this I'm going to show, this is exactly like the same stuff that's in African religions. Traditional Native American religious spirituality. The Great Spirit, Master Spirit, Sky Chief, often termed the Creator or the Supreme Being, is a central force in many Native American traditions. And some people also don't list that it's up in the north too, because the Pacific Northwest, the Tlingit, and I think it's Tizelman, maybe the Haida too, they all have a Sky Chief or a Great Spirit. The Great Spirit term, Great Spirit, is more from the plains, native peoples, but the concept is just a different way of saying.
It's just terminology. Yeah.
Right. Well, I just don't want people to get confused. So, in a sense, and this is a central force, like I said, in many things. It's acting as the ultimate, often interpersonal creator. Right. Interpersonal, thus distant, which is exactly what the African religions say. Greater, but distant, not real active. So they're doing the same or similar thing.
Well, it looks like maybe you froze. Maybe I froze.
What's that?
Oh, you froze for a little bit. I was worried that I froze, but apparently not.
Okay.
You stopped at the doing the same thing. So
okay. So below this, the sense Great Spirit or Sky Chief, which is a supreme presence, being God, are lesser deities or spirits, benevolent forces, and this also in the Keda Ayo means Sky Chief or Chief above in the Kado language, and the Kado name for their creator God, which is also known as the Chief above, the Great Father above, or can be called the Great Spirit. Sometimes this is the term, though, for the Plains Indians that is used. And a type of a deity that the Great Spirit is a high God, which is all over the world. And a creator God, it's a sky spirit. And there's other related figures in different tribes that have this similar type of Great Spirit type of thing. From the Pawnee, the Mi'kmaq, the Lenape, the Chippewa, the Algonquin, Ashimbi, I don't pronounce all these correctly.
You were doing great until that one. Maybe we just skip that.
But anyways, and it says, in general, though, for most of the tribes, especially the Algonquin, the Great Spirit is abstract, benevolent, and does not directly interact with humans. You could just change that and say African religions, because that they would say is basically benevolent, abstract, doesn't involve with humans, and is rarely personified. That is also correct. Often doesn't have a gender, not either in the Great Spirit concept or in the African supreme deity concept. So traditional African religion, that was just to get you to show that it's not different. It's the more you understand the fine tuning. There's more I could have done than just those, but just to give you a concept that, even though it sounds like you said before, it's because we're looking back in a sense at the older. This is what later stuff changed, from this, not the other way around. So we're looking back further in a sense, like archaeology. You look, keep digging, you go get further back.
Right.
So African, in a sense, religion, spiritual philosophy, which sounds similar, especially in the West African religions, like their supreme god, Ordurum and Ordume, which is seen in a whole bunch of, in a sense, religions that are synchronized with, especially Catholic, in Cuba and Louisiana and Haiti and, down in South America and Brazil. And so there's a whole bunch of religions.
So your Santarinas, your voodoos, hoodoos. Exactly. It's a little
Type of supreme deity.
Okay. Yeah, there was a little lag there for a sec, but we got the pictures that a lot of the Western African concepts were brought over, presumably in the slave trade,
Yes.
and populated the Americas, in sort
Yes.
of Creole religion, Creole religions, voodoo, hoodoo, Santarina,
Candomblé.
Yeah.
A whole bunch of different stuff all relates to the same area.
Okay.
And it all relates often, every one of them have almost a supreme deity. And some of them even have the same name.
Yeah, that's what
they didn't even change the name.
Yeah, I've learned
It's the
that.
same deity. Anyways, so supreme, like Oro, like I said, Olorum and Odumer, the ruler in or of heavens, the creator of the universe, the supreme deity or supreme being in the Yoruba religion, and its related synchronized religions that we already talked about in the Americas and the Caribbean. Ordurum has no gender, and always is referred to as an entity who exists in spiritual form only. Kind of like, like I said before, when you think of chi, the energy existing, or like I said, Great Spirit often is explained the same way. Ordurum's name is, in a sense, a contraction of the words Orum, which denotes ownership or rulership, and Rum, which relates to the heavens and the abode of the spirits. Another name is Odumer, which goes to the phrase, in a sense, creating the universe and all beings, as the owner of the source of creation, what the name means, or the one who is all sufficient. And it's frequently perceived as a compassionate, or like the Native Americans, benevolent entity who protects its creation and is thought to be omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent. People do not worship Ordurum directly. There is no sacred areas to worship, and there's no iconography or temples or anything of Ordurum. The one supreme god in the Trinidad religion of Orisha is Odumer, and the Orishas, also referred to as the gods, which are the messengers for Odumer. Candomblé, various spirits known, and also in Vodum, which are, in a sense, deemed subservient to the transcendent creator God, Older, which is just pronounced. The only thing different is it's O-L-U-D, where the other African one is O-L-O-D. So it's, but then also they do call it Odorum, which is the exact same name as the African Yoruba. Practitioners of Condemblé believe that this divinity created the universe but takes little interest in human affairs, which is, like I said, is distant, exactly what the African one says anyways. Haiti Voodoo, which, by the way, Voodoo is not directly related to the Yoruba religion. It's related to other tribes right near them, and they all, in a sense, practically the same. Very, very similar. And anyways, the Haiti Voodoo teaches that the existence of a transcendent creator, Banbi, under whom the spirits are known. So in the sense, a hierarchy again, where the supreme deity and then lesser spirits, in a sense, interact in the world. And in the Umbanda religion, adherents of this monotheistic religion believe that a single God who is distant from humanity, and this entity is a powerful beneath this deity are powerful non-human spirits, and that's in a sense a religion that's in Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay, but it still relates back. So the Yoruba in religion, which I consider to me just the West African belief, or the West African Orisha, which is the deities, comprise the traditional and religious and spiritual concepts of practice of the Yoruba people. And it generally has a whole bunch of different groups that go under that. I'm not going to read them all, but there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different deities, and they basically are in southwestern Nigeria, and then they're also on the plateau of southern Benin.
Oh, okay.
And adjoining parts of Tongo. It has become the largest indigenous African religion belief system in the world, with several million adherents worldwide. It shares, by the way, when you try to go look up African religions, and it's not about generally, Egypt, more than likely what it's going to show you is something to do with the Yoruba religion.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it shares many parallels with the West African Vodum religion, which is practiced by the Fon and the Ewe people, which is just west, in a sense, and also the Edu people to its east of the people that are the Yoruba.
Okay.
So on both sides, they have the Vodum religion is, in a sense, on both sides of the Yoruba people, just showing again that more than likely this is all like one idea. It just kind of got split. So then the African diaspora school of thought integrates into what is now constitutes the core of its New World religions, which are a variety of mainly Yoruba-derived contemporary African religions. Condemblé, which is in Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, Santorini in Cuba, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, Trinidad Orisha, which is in Trinidad and Tobago, Venezuela spiritualism in Venezuela, and spiritual Baptist, which is in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Yumbanga, which is in Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, and then the African Vodum, of course, which is the people basically in Benin, Tongo, Ghana, and Nigeria, relates to the Haitian Vodum and Louisiana Voodoo, which Louisiana got some of it from the Haitians.
Sure.
in a sense. And then, anyway, so when it comes to Bantu, which is, so in a sense, both those other Western African religions, all of the ones that have those deities, in both Fodum and in the Yoruba religion, which is, like I said, is most of the stuff in the West, that's all Niger-Congo A, part of the language. So it just shows that these ideas came into the language, and then by the language spread, because almost every single group in both sides, Niger-Congo A and Niger-Congo B, all have supreme deities.
Right.
So Nami and Nazambi, the supreme deity in the Bantu, Niger-Congo B related. And there's a lot. So Nambi is the name used for the Bantu-speaking cultures to refer to their supreme being, the creator of the universe, the Sky Father God, which is funny because Sky Father is all over the world too.
Yeah.
Some people only consider Sky Father to be what all the Proto-Indo-Europeans had a Sky Father. And often also the Sky Father is the God of the sun. And also this is true in the Niger-Congo B, which is Bantu. The Sky Father, Supreme God, is also God of the sun. It's also the source of all life. He's described as all-powerful, all-knowing, all above, while different African cultures use various names for this creator, such as Nanjambi, Nanjambai, Nambi, Nahambi, Nahembi, Nazembi, Nambimbi, Nazimbi. The concept...
It just sounds like dialect differences or pronunciation differences. Yeah.
Right. Just showing you that even though people, because a lot of people, the reason I bring this up, I wanted to address this, a lot of people think that everywhere that people built their own gods from there. That's not what I see.
Yeah, I mean, that's closer together than Yahweh to Jehovah, isn't it? It's the same four letters.
Right, yeah, true. But also, Jehovah, you mean Yehovah originally, because
right.
J is a Romance language, so there was no J. Anyways, that came later. There was no Jesus. There would have been Jesus because they didn't have a J. But anyway.
Or Yeshua, Joshua.
Right.
Though it was Judea, wasn't it? Judah? Didn't they have some J's in there?
No. Well, that would have still been. That's like people that goes back to.
Would it be Judah? Would it have been Judah?
Probably something else. Okay. Yeah. It would have been something else.
So Yoda might be Judah. So okay.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, no. Well, because just like a lot of people, we use words now. Like we say Egypt. They called it Kemet. We say, certain deities like Isis or something. I think it's a Set, the original name. The names that we know in places that we know are often what the colonizers gave these, in a sense, cultures. So yeah, just because we're familiar with it doesn't mean it's traditional.
Okay,
in a sense.
Fair enough.
Right. So, just like if you go back to what's the traditional or Paleo, I should say that Paleo-Hebrew, the name for God was a bull's head symbol and a crooked staff symbol, meaning the bull meant strong and the staff meant controller. So together, which is El, the name meant strong controller. That was the name in the sense for epitaph or whatever of the, Hebrew deity. So it wasn't Yahweh and it wasn't, you didn't even write it as L as in E or, they didn't have those letters.
Right.
Anyways, just, I like languages. Even though I really suck at pronouncing stuff, I do like the concept of how things change and what they were. It's quite interesting. Because when I first started, I thought, names have always been that way.
Right.
Wrong.
Right, yeah, for sure.
Anyway, so far the Banco people are the only people known to have identified Nazambi with a goddess and sky mother.
Oh,
so in other words, they take the same deity and they just changed its gender and from Sky Father to Sky Mother, but which also just still shows that people, as you were talking about before, that people take the stuff they like and then they relate it to themselves. So, I mean, they took the supreme deity and changed its gender persuasion. Anyway, the zombie Ampegu, there's a whole bunch of other names. I'm not going to read them all. It is the supreme deity, the eternal Sky Father, the god of the sun and fire, and the Congo spirituality. His female counterpart is Nazambekiki, the Sky Mother, which is important because, like in Proto-Indo-European, there's a lot of religions of the world, it's a Sky Father and an Earth Mother.
Yeah.
But there are other things, which I think the original was actually Sky Mother, Sky Father, not Earth anything. I don't think the Earth Mother comes until like about after 10,000, probably about 9,000 to 8,000.
Oh, okay.
Certainly by 8,000 in Çatalhöyük, I think it was blossoming. And then that's why when it goes, the people from Çatalhöyük go into the Balkans and then up to the steppe. Once the steppe gets it, it already has now, they have a Sky Father and they get this Earth Mother from Çatalhöyük. And so then it becomes, married together.
Where's Çatalhöyük?
Çatalhöyük is in southeast Turkey. No, that's not southeast Turkey. Central Turkey.
Central Turkey. Okay.
Central Turkey, and it is known that the DNA from that did go into the Balkans sometime, probably 8,000. So they practically got the deity and were just hauling.
Well, talking about things change. I mean, there were no Turks in Turkey then.
Yeah, well, true, yes. And people call it Antinola, but I mean, yeah, that would be like me every time I refer to the United States using some Turtle Island or something.
Right. Yeah. I mean, who knows what the actual people called where it was then? And
I'm just making a comment because some archaeologists literally can't stand that I call it Turkey. I go, here's my thing. I know all this is super complicated, and our academics make it sometimes, I feel, even more complicated. But I just want to give it to the regular people so they can at least have a passing understanding of what's going on.
Yeah, I don't think Turkey's going anywhere anytime soon, so you might as well call it Turkey.
Yeah, now they want to change it to a different writing, to where it's written in their language, which I don't generally do because it's even more confusing.
Well, I mean, I'm going to write in the only language I know how to write in or type. Yes, I mean, listen, my handwriting is its own language. I can't even read my handwriting half the time. So, I mean, talk about hieroglyphic that nobody can interpret. But
right.
Right. So we did West Africa. We moved sort of into Central Africa, if I'm following correctly.
Yes, we're not doing Central Africa. Definitely. So like I said, so they have, in a sense, the supreme deity also. And then there's the Basset people of Cameroon who also have Nagambi or Nagambi, which is considered to have, be one of their elders, but also the great deity.
Okay.
And then also in Central Africa is the Chukot people of northeast Angola, who also have Nzambi, and then also called Kalaunga, which means the god of change, and Santa Manga, which means the creator. And anyways, there's a couple other names. And then there's also the Fang people of Gabon and Cameroon who believe in the supreme deity Nezing, or Mesber, and the Fang cosmology, Nezeb, created life and also three spirits that have to do with strength, leadership, and beauty.
Okay.
And then the Li people of the Democratic Republic of Congo also have a supreme deity called Najambi. And he is thought to be the creator of the forest of water spirits, also called Rinji, similar to the Dis-Imple and the Kong religion. And then East Africa has Nairo among the Toro people of Uganda, who refer to their supreme god as Nahanje. And then South Africa has the Hambrukshu, who in a sense believe in Nahambi, who created the world and placed the people in the sacred hills. And they believe that he sends good to them from heaven and punishes wicked through the messenger, the dead messenger, through his death messenger.
I think the name of the supreme deity, whether it's male or female or neither, I mean, most of them seem to start with an N. We had a few M's there as well. There were others, of course, but most of them seem to be something near Nahambi, Nahanje, Najambi. Yes. I mean, listen, I obviously it's dangerous to play with phonetics and whatever, but we're getting to geography and whatever, and it seems like you're an independent researcher. I'm not even that, but it seems that it would not be an unreasonable hypothesis that somewhere the original language had something with Najee or Najam, or that sort of the root word of king or
these are all Niger Congo B related, meaning they're all Bantu, and the Bantu start in Cameroon at one spot,
right,
and then went out from that 5,000 years ago and spread all over Central and Southern Africa. So yes, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be Zachariah Sitchin and say, like everybody said, somebody came from the stars, so then they were aliens. But but they're aliens.
Well, no, I don't think. I told you where I think they come from at the beginning. I think the tDNA from the Middle East and R1B V88 from the Middle East, both at 9 and at 8 and 7, came in and brought this cattle herders of goats and sheep religion, this pastoralist, non-farming sort of, but pastoralist.
Well, there's logic to that. That like when you settle down and there's more you need a more administrative, bureaucratic pantheon, because there's lots of things that are important. Not that there weren't lots of things important where you're more pastoral and hunter-gatherer, but you were following what was important to you. So as long as there were animals you could eat and water you could to drink, maybe there didn't need to be such a sedentary, godhood or I'm sure you still could come up with you needed 7 or 8 deities or different categories or whatever. I'm sure that folks even living whatever kind of simpler life, because if they're humans, they can overcomplicate anything. But, I'm sure they have their own homeowners association, whatever the equivalent is. Somebody had the sling, somebody watched the spear, somebody watched the gers or the dogs or whatever. But I just think that it makes some sense that also if irrigation is important and, rain and I mean, flies suck, but they're but they probably didn't mean the plague until they're eating your crops. Right. I guess that's a simpler way to do it. But I noticed that.
Yes, I agree with you. I'm not doing this by just guessing. I have looked at all this stuff, and that's what I'm trying to show you in the quickest, in a sense, light.
Right. Your
is that
worldwide concepts, and in the biggest continent on Earth with the least amount of written history that we present day man have, and trying to break it up regionally for some schmuck who has a podcast. It's not an easy task I gave you. So maybe I'll shut up.
So I want to read a few of aren't with an N, right?
Okay.
But still the same thing. So, in the longbow spirituality, it's Chuk Hu, which is supreme being, and it is the source of all other deities responsible for answering their tasks, different tasks. In other words, telling the other deities what to do. And it is believed that this Chukwu God, who brings rain necessary for plants to grow and controls everything on earth and the spiritual world. They believe that Chukwu is also undefinable, omnipotent, omnipresent, supreme deity that encompasses everything in space and space itself. And then there's Mari, which is the supreme creator to the Shona and the Benda traditional religions. It is believed that Mari is the author of all things, all life, all is in him. The majority of the deity's followers contend that, or concentrated, in Mozambique, South Africa, Zimbabwe, and they're omnipotent being who rules over spirits, and the supreme deity of their religion is the same deity also referred to in the Inkihois, northern and southern Nebebi traditional religion. So they're just saying once again that this deity is also like this other deity down there.
Which part of Africa geographically? Are we getting into South Africa?
Yeah, it's South Africa and the areas around Southern Africa. I'm reading you different deities because I already read you all the ones that are really similar, like you said. Literally, the names have to be related.
Right.
These are ones where the names are not related, but still the ideas are.
The concepts,
the ideas are seeming almost the same.
Right. And if one is religious and you see all these universal concepts, you could say this is validation of my religion. So, and I know that.
Well, that's what I told this one guy. He said, well, what if I'm not an atheist like you? I said, well, then the only other thing I could conclude from all my research is that all religion is really referring to the same. That's what I would say. If you're going to believe in religion, then you'd have to acknowledge that it seems like everybody individually or shared idea came up with this almost the same thing. It's really not that different. I mean, I don't think it's true. I just think that religions and gods are a cultural product, and they moved in cultural migrations. That's why they're similar. And this has to do with all over the world. It wasn't the same DNA or haplogroup that took it everywhere. It's just that one went one way, one went another way, and both carried the same ideas or similar ideas, and they then got somewhere. Then different people went from there with those ideas, and it sometimes changed, but then similar went somewhere else until eventually it just populated everything. And all are similar references to this ideas that are really related in a sense. Like language, you can have language families where they just keep breaking off and changing, but it's like Proto-Indo-European language is the Hindus, is the Greeks, is the Romans, is the Germans, is the French, is the English, is the Spanish, is the Nordic countries, is Russian. All these things, and you're like, how can that all be the same?
Right.
Well, because that's what happens is you have thousands of years to branch off and keep diversifying. Just think, English that we're speaking right now is considered like a form of High German. Like German.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
That's fine because George III, the King of England, didn't speak a word of English, only spoke German, and so couldn't speak to most of the people in his own country, and couldn't speak to even fewer people in probably any of their many colonies. Anyway, did you come across any sort of like, I mean, obviously we've got this concept of the sky creator, whether it's a father or a mother or sort of just a creator.
Gender.
Right, yeah, ungendered.
Sometimes both genders.
Right, yeah, right. Serving both functions. Did you find any that's like, you sort of find like the Olympians or like or so you have like a thunder god, a goddess of, or god of love, a god of music, medicine, the 12, like from Donovan's Atlantis, the poet, the builder, this.
Well, so when you talk about deities like that, often those pantheons, not only are they hierarchical, they're generally different generations, like Odin and Zeus are both the fourth generation, not the first. He's not the original deity. Odin's not the original deity. These are younger.
Yeah, there was Buri, and then Odin and his two brothers. I don't know who was before Bur. I guess there was just sort of a void.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, like the ice giants or whatever, the original stuff.
Ymir, yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember the names off the top of my head, but my point I'm saying is that a lot of people think of deities, they just think of just the one pantheon that they currently know. They don't realize that this is an iteration at least 4 times removed. And so, yeah, the difference, like you already said, about African religions is they don't have a lot of them.
Okay.
They don't have the 4 removed. They have maybe like 1 removed or something compared to everybody else in a sense. They give all these different names, sort of change things around sometimes, but no, they don't have multiple types of things.
Here's as little here's the one thing I know, and by know I mean I read a bunch of books by an author who covers. So I think it's Neil Gaiman who wrote American Gods, and he had some African gods in there, but he also had some other books I read with Anansi the spider, who was sort of, I guess, the Loki, the coyote, the fox, or the trickster god, but also the wise god. Spinning threads. There's no shortage of spider gods out there, and
Anansi is also considered a supreme deity.
Oh, really? I did not know that. Okay.
So I have it written down on my thing.
Well, I believe
one of the I have 30 supreme deities of Africa, but there's different areas. But Anansi is definitely one of them.
So the spider version would be just an avatar of the sky creator.
Well, no, not exactly. So the sky creator can be a spider because the sun, in a sense, could be hanging there from a spider web.
Oh, sure. The spider could weave the whole thing.
I'm saying our concept.
I've seen Mothra. I know what webbing can do.
But I'm just making a comment that I know sometimes the way that they perceive things is not inherently the way we would see them.
Right, and I do blame them for this whole Madam Web thing in the Spider-Verse, because that might have lost comics for me forever. That whole, when that started, like in the late 80s.
Yeah. Well, the Native Americans also have a spider, and there's also a spider in Mesopotamia. There's more stuff related to that, and the one in Native Americans, there's one story where I think that she catches either the moon or the sun with the web or something, or orders. Maybe she orders. I can't remember exactly. I've read some stuff. Maybe orders the sky or the sun with the web or something. But yeah, the way that the people see things is different. So we think of it like, because I remember the first time I was like, how in the heck is a spider also the sky deity? Just what?
Yeah, but I'm not always sure what was actually the sky deity, or what was a way to explain it, to kids and others, so that they could get the concept. And then over time, it sort of, G.I. Joe, at first was what you call every private, the grunts, the infantry guys. Well, now G.I. Joe. You say G.I. Joe, you're going to go from different generations of toys and movies and products. So all I was saying is that it might have started as an allegory or something that is easy to remember, but over time, the spider actually became the embodiment of the god, versus it was more a literal design, design.
I don't
device.
disagree. In fact, like I said, I think that in general, that is a general thing. I don't know that all of the ways that they tried to explain stuff was always the way that we perceive it. And it's just like trying to explain something and someone that does a different language. Like, you talk about the Americas. So one of the things, especially North America, even though they had all these different language and all these different tribes, there was a very few amount in big areas crossing multiple languages and talk, where they use like sign language to explain things. So I'm sure some of the religious ideas that went across tribes might have sometimes just been how you did hand signs. And just like I was saying about Paleo, Hebrew, a bull's head and a staff was the god. So yes, our concepts are limited by our ability to express and understand, what each other is saying. And I agree with you. They definitely.
I gotta tell you,
allegory is not an unreasonable thing at all.
Miss Cucurello, who I think was my 10th grade English teacher, who I'm sure, and probably all the others who said I didn't pay enough attention during the symbolism sections. You were right. I didn't, but I think that some of it probably was symbolism, purposeful symbolism, almost like how the Norse Eddas that survive are a little bit silly. I'm sure in the original form, they were not silly at all. But they had to survive the Christian censors at the time. I think some of these things were made easier for kids, and because they're easier for kids, they became easier for adults to remember. And then, they became, instead of the original origin story, it sort of became like the short version, like sort of the Aesop fables, which are not myths, but, sort of the shorter versions. And, I don't know if one of the things that hit me recently about religions writ large, and I'm only talking about because you talked about your journey as to, how you only knew one truth and then you only knew one falsity at that point, is that I would think that if there was a religion and there was an all-knowing God, that they make the rules pretty simple. You just say, yeah, I'm God. Be nice. Don't be shits. I will judge you. I don't need your help. I'm gonna take care of everything. But don't be shits, because you'll need my help at times. And if you're a shit, I'm gonna judge you. And there's an afterlife, and it can be really, really bad, and it can be various degrees of, okay to really, really super pleasant. So behave yourselves. Be well. That's it. You need anything, call. I'll be listening. and, that's it. There's my one-page manifesto. There's Jeff's Bible. Nothing about bulls and 17 layers of heaven and and I've got 10 commandments, but one of them isn't that thou shalt not commit incest, because all of your royal lines are
or thou shalt not do slavery.
Thou shalt not do slavery, right?
That seems like a no-brainer.
No, slavery was a-okay in most of the parts of the Bible. I mean, some of it was treat your slave good, or well, or okay. But hey, Patriarch Abraham, you can go to Egypt. Yeah, you should totally pretend that your wife isn't your wife, and you should pimp her out because she's a smoking hot 65-year-old. So I just don't. I don't know what those stories were supposed to have told us. But I don't think they were supposed to be imparted literally. But again, obviously I'm not God. But if there's one listening, I would just maybe come up with a really simple doctrine, one that we could all sort of, understand and say, oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We've been doing a lot of things wrong, but, all we have to do is not be shits. That's
I think that religion didn't start with a God. The original religion started in animism, which is a natural occurring thing in children under 7, to see animation in the world with agency.
Mm.
It's not like every single child has that, but it's a very, very common. They used to think every child did, but that's not really accurate. Behavioralism tried to study that in psychology. It's more the thing that's a persuasion that it's common. And then after 7, your brain starts developing more logical thinking, and you start critiquing your own thoughts or thoughts from others that are offered. To me, what happens in religion is it stops at that time and doesn't really like me. I never really thought, was afraid even to read about other religions when I was in my Christian faith. You're not taught to. I know there are certainly some religions that teach that you should research stuff.
Yeah, but who would even want to? Listen, from my experience and my background with people I've known, it's hard enough to get kids and interested enough in their own religion, let alone to anyone else's. I'm sure my experience is certainly not everybody's, but I bet there are more people like me than there, were like you that were so steeped in your religion that never question it. And that's neither here nor there for our subject. So, how are we doing on African pantheons? Have we sort of circumnavigated the continent to the extent that's practical for one episode, or is there another region or regions we should cover?
Well, like I said, there's other deities in different regions. I could keep reading. You could hear pretty much the same thing.
They're the same thing.
It's just the names change. So, like you said before, right? I'll just read the names so you can hear several names.
Okay.
So that you know that the names aren't just, and because I was reading all Bantu stuff related, and all of a sudden you're like, they all sound the same. So I already read you, which was the Chukwu and the Maori, and then there's also Ruhanga, and then there's Mambo, and then there's Unkalakula, and then there is Bemba.
I've heard Bemba.
And then there is Nangawu.
I also have heard Mambo, but I don't know if I've heard Mambo as a deity or the snake.
I don't know. Depends on how it's being spelled, really. I can read it to you.
But I think Bemba is one of the gods that translated.
Mbombo. Okay, also called Bumba.
Okay.
So then Bmba is also another deity, right? Which in another area of Mali, which is also called Ngala or Pemba. So they different clans or something change the name sometimes.
Right.
And there's Waag, which is a Kushite. And then there's Rogue. And Rogue is interesting because Rogue is the supreme creator of the Seeker religion, and sometimes is seen as omnipresent and omnipotent, but also an ancestor, which is interesting. all those, and also the ancestor, and the master of the world, and then the Lord, and also is related in a sense, depending on the situation, is hermaphroditic sort of being, which incorporates male and female natures. And sometimes it acts in a more female nature, sometimes more in a male nature, and it uses appropriate pronouns depending on what it's doing. Sometimes this rogue is referred to as both, called the father-mother, or sometimes rituals, they call it the grandfather-grandmother. So some of this, but like once you understand the other things, though, it's not really that strange.
Yeah.
Anyway,
no.
so then Cajon Boom is another one, and then Gabi, and then Nagi, and Tombrook, and that's all the different ones that I have. There's even more, but because I had looked before, and I was like really shocked at how many there were that were related to Niger Congo, both A and B. And I knew that, or I felt, I shouldn't say knew, I felt that R1B V88 had also brought it in, and they mainly went to Chad area. And so I looked at all the Chad ones, each, group. Because some of the times it's really hard, because it's hard to research in Africa, because it's not like people have put all this together and made it easy.
Right.
They literally have not. Even like you said about the N DNA deity. Well, there's another one which I didn't read, which is the O DNA deity. It's like I don't know, but kind of similar to the Yoruba, which is O, but another one, not Yoruba. This other deity from Chad. Literally, there's this huge list of different groups of different languages, all using the same exact O deity. Also, which relates to Chad, which I told you, I think that group probably relates to the R1B B88, and these other groups that went to Niger Congo relate to the T, I think it's T1 or T2, I can't remember, but haplogroup from the Middle East. I sent you a map before showing you what I was talking about of them coming in.
Well, Chad makes sense in that, Lake Chad was, I think it's still the biggest lake in Africa, but it was a sea. It was an inland sea. So people come, from all directions, it's natural that they would congregate there and cross. It would be a crossroads, a place where people would trade, meet, mix, mingle, trade, forge alliances, marry off sons and daughters, that kind of thing. And certainly any trade routes would stop at the largest source of water in the area. So it makes a lot of sense. So yeah. All right. Well, thank you.
Going back to the different things beyond just the deities, the other thing that African religions have that matches other places in the world is they start with before creation, it was darkness.
Mm-hmm.
And often that darkness was primordial waters, or the earth itself had primordial waters, or like in some of it, the earth is barren, but the first thing that happens is primordial waters. And after that fact, then you have mountains, then you have people.
Right. All important differences, but not that far apart, and not that far apart from any other origin story, really. It's out there. What's cosmology, cosmogony?
Right. Cosmology. Right, because the cosmology of the whole North Eurasia and in North America is Earth Diver, which is primordial waters, and then a mound gets built up by animals. Then you have, like in the Russian and the Slavic, in a sense, they have a myth where a deity is a good deity and there's an evil deity, and the devil works for the god to build the mound up, to build the first mound land. And Egypt has the mound of creation, and all four of its, in a sense, major city religion. If you look up traditional or ancient African or Egyptian, religions, there's 4 different main cities that told 4 different stories, but they all have the Mound of Creation.
Right.
And the Mound of Creation relates also to why they built the pyramids. And the pyramidium thing, with the bin stone on top of the pyramid, was also considered a representation of the Mound of Creation, which goes back to this: everything is water, and then a first land is like a pyramid, or a mountain, or a mound, which, like I said, when you look at it that way, that's like at least half of the world has something very similar to that thinking.
Mountain of the Gods.
What's that?
Mountain of the Gods. Gods live in the mountains, And
yeah, well, in fact, like the ziggurats of Mesopotamia were considered the Mountain of the Gods.
Right.
That's what they called that, their structure in a sense.
Yeah, and then in the Bible, it became an affront to God that men were trying to build to God. So, yeah, I mean, we it's interesting and it's fun. Okay, so thank you very much for all of that. Is there a song that you associate with these studies or what we've been talking about, or that just reminds you of African deities as an outro song?
I can give you one.
Okay, that's fine. You can shoot it to me.
It's from Gambia. From the artist is called Saint Gambia. Dream.
Saint Gambia Dream. I will find it.
Hold on. Yeah, I actually listen to African music when I do some of my stuff.
I think that's cool. Saint Gambia. Yeah, it's the first. It's Saint de Gambia, but yeah, it's Dream, and I found it. So
yes, you're right, Saint Soul.
So folks,
I'm obviously not that big of a fan, right? But he has a song called Africa. Hold on, let me find it, because I think that's a good song for this, because he says Africa, my people, and stuff. It's a pretty cool song.
All right. Well, you can send it to me. You can find me the YouTube or some other link and just send it in the place we've been communicating. Folks, that's what you're going to hear next. Damien, tell people where they can find and follow you, assuming you want to be found and followed.
Yeah, you can find me at my website, which is Damien Marie Athope .com, and all my stuff is on there. I'm also on Twitter, and I'm on or X, and I'm on Facebook, and I'm on Blue Sky. You can follow me on any of those.
All right. Well, thank you for that. You're going to hear a song, folks. And if anyone's here by accident, or because you follow Damien here, thank you. This is Garden of Thought. You can find Garden of Thought wherever podcasts are: Apple, Spreaker, Spotify, Podbean, SoundCloud, etc. And there is a YouTube channel. It's relatively new. I appreciate subscribers. I don't even blame you if you don't watch, because it's just the podcast with the show art. But one day, when there's enough subscribers, maybe we'll start going live, or at least have the recording so you can see people on it. But it is at Garden of Thought Pod, all one word. I don't know if it matters not if the G is capitalized and the T is capitalized, but that's how it was created. So if you go there, that would be great also. And if you could share with friends and rate and review. I don't ask nearly enough for it. I'm bad at promoting, and I'm bad at being a professional broadcaster. But I'm good at persistence and not quitting. So here we are, and hopefully by now you're hearing some really nice music. But if you want to follow me on the X, on my semi-normal but semi-dormant account, it's at IcarusFellMD. If you're interested in wrestling nonsense, it's at dose_evil. But sometimes you can find wrestling nonsense here, because I do a show on this very same channel that sometimes is called the Book of Black, sometimes it's called the Gospel of Thomas, depending on who my co-host is. And in the past, it's been PJ Black, who formerly known as Justin Gabriel in his WWE days, and Gospel of Thomas is when it's Mr. Thomas from Major League Wrestling. And we've had some other co-hosts, so of course, our guest hosts. So of course, I have to change the name every single time because I'm insane. Anyway, but we do talk to people in wrestling, and we try not to talk to them about wrestling. That's the difference. So wrestlers are artists, so it can be an interesting conversation. Anyway, thanks for being with us. Thanks for being here. Thanks again to our guest Damien. A real pleasure. And everyone, you'll hear from us next time.
When the rain starts, I'm umbrella for my people. Dilikando kono kei roti for your people. Stay loyal to your people. My people are you people. Don't lie to the people. Speak the truth to your people. Ni pareta ka lead. Wata pareka far for these people. Working on these people. Bank to bank conference. Only meeting Bambalu. Hani Simon Fenya from you people. What happened to these people? Ain't there funds to these people? Organizational ka collect on behalf. Mukanga rock days for my people. So taste for my people. The system, if the system ain't there for my people. Political people, NGO people, people for the interest of the people. People, with people, stop using people, vehicle, I don't park, feeding off. Too much violence for my people, Doku, TJ for my people. Instead of Doku, create or they build more jails for my people. It ain't fair to the people, option TJ for my people. When it's said and done, survival of the fittest for my people.
My people, black people, my people, African people, my people, black people, my people, African people.
Hungry people, no freedom for local people, Subukul people. Mukabala far for Fuari people. Nundolma love Jamala, just domota with our people. Connection slow, but internet will be sharing for my people. Who cares for the people? He the skins of my people. Muskonomal be faka label to the like they not people, you people. Upon you, who are these people? I'm tired of voting it back, getting sick of you people. Voice of the people representing all the people. Don't you get tired of tiredness? Be tired of you people. System of the people for the people by the people. But being a sequel, they put guns on my people. Right with range on my people. There's a strength for my people. Back to slavery days, they putting chains on my people. Your chain for change. Together we can make a change. We are looking for change, not pocket change, my people. Ninga jubero kenu. I see my people for my people. Now I look around, I see my people against my people.
My people.